preparing, and we are live according to what's happening here.
Yes.
So it actually happens on YouTube, although it usually goes live without us.
Uh-oh, I can't hear you. Oh,
maybe.
Oh, there you are. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. See, we're live. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good morning, depending on what part of the world
wherever you are. Welcome. I'm Larissa Russell of Creative You Healing, and I have with me Deb Epstein
of Cosmic Dreaming Lodge, which is located right behind me.
Exactly.
Well, this is all it, but
we're here for another discussion, connection with spirit, and really just having a discussion. That's what we do here. But if you have any questions or you want to jump in and say hi, let us know. We are watching the chat, and we look forward to, interaction. So otherwise, we have no problem talking amongst ourselves, but we would love to have you join in with us as well. So today we're talking about organic creation, getting into the flow. And so we were just talking about the energy in the world and the shifts that are happening. And maybe you can start us off, Deborah, with, you were on such a good spiel there, and then I stopped you so we could start the recording. And
oh gosh, yeah. And what was I talking about? Well, we were talking about rhythms, and we're talking about business because, we were both talking about how our approach to business and what we're creating is changing. And I was just kind of saying, like, I'm not sure like where this is going, but I'm really listening more to my rhythm and less to my bank account. But there's a yes and in that too, because we have to be mindful of as a business owner, we want to be mindful of what we're investing in the creation of our business and the client flow. And what my experience has been in the last year is client flow has been really diminishing. And so there's that experience, and then also how I'm feeling about that experience, and also what work is calling me. And so what work is calling me more is my writing and my painting. And it takes a level of energy to do it all, and do it all to I don't know, like to a high extent, I guess, to say that way. It's hard to, what I've discovered and this is just for me, because I'm sure there's people that can do it, but for me, I have a lot of stuff coming through me. It requires my time to sit in quiet and distill down what's coming through the channel. And in order to honor that process, I need to take that hiatus to really honor that, despite my fear of not enough that starts to pop in, or my ego of like, hey, I have this business, and this is what this means, and da 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 da, and then what is it like to kind of step back. And a couple of weeks ago, I sent out an email. I was in the middle of launching a program, and I was doing a free event, and it was like partially free, partially paid. It was like free on the surface, and I was trying something new, free on the surface. And if you wanted to go in a little deeper and get a deeper VIP experience, it was $27. I had nobody sign up for it. Absolutely nobody signed up for it. And I got to a day within the start time, and I just really sat in the felt sense of, what does my heart really want? And it was telling me this wasn't it. So I sent out a really poignant email, a very honest email, that, I was pulling the plug on this and everything's changing. Like, get ready. We're going on a ride. I don't know what that's going to look like, but we're going on a ride. And you can stay and join me, or here's the unsubscribe button if this bores you. So I'm always going to be inviting you. I'm a healer and a coach and an artist, and that's kind of how I play in the world right now. I'm all about like our individual abilities to succeed in whatever endeavor it is that lights our fire, and however that looks. And that's kind of what we're talking about with rhythm, because we maybe right now don't know what that's going to look like. And that can be really scary. But there is something about that, something that feels really good about honoring that rhythm, despite what anybody says about it.
Oh, I am in absolute agreement. And I was just saying, you and I both had a similar download about 15 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there was many of us that did. I remember when I put Awakening out, I had it put together so fast because I got this download in the middle of the night. And within days, there was about 6 or 8 people that I follow that had almost identical wording from my program. Totally, like we all were doing it differently, but very similar wording. And you and I are often in alignment with what's, what programs we do and things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then I am in the same situation right now. And it's not even so much that, it's dropped off. If anything, it's gotten better, as in we've had a few more people as I've started to shift a little bit towards going deeper, right? I'm going to leave the surface work for a self-paced, and to work with me, we're going deeper. And so this shift, I don't know either what that looks like right now, because I'm in a deeper, more expansive place. And so I feel like I'm being directed that way, but I don't know what it looks like. And it's a really scary place to be right now. And, my team is like, what are we doing? What's happening? And I'm like, I don't know. Out. So, yeah. What is happening?
Yeah.
It
does make planning a little challenging when you have, someone helping you out there. Yeah. So I see we have like 10 people here.
Welcome. Say hello.
Chat. Say hello and pop in. And what is your, we'll give you time to answer this. Like, what is your experience or thoughts about organic creating? What does that mean to you? And how does that play? Maybe you're already like in the rhythm and flow of your creativity, and it doesn't have to be just making art. It can be anything. To me, all of life is creative. And, are you feeling like you're in the creative flow? Are you feeling that maybe you're just on the outside and needing to realign yourself to it? And so, if you can pop in what you're experiencing out there, it can make for some really cool interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like as artists, as spiritual people, we talk often about getting into the flow. But what if we were just always in the flow?
Well, I believe that we always are in the flow, and where we step out is because we have a conscious choice, because we'll feel, I think this is kind of how it happens, is that we feel energy all the time. All of us do. And we also have a fight or flight programming. So a lot of our body's intelligence is programmed to operate off of past experience, right? And that ends up in our field, it ends up in our body. And so when we feel something shifting or coming, like we're in the flow and maybe a new pattern emerges in the flow, that it may trigger some fear. And we can go into protection, or we can go into old patterns, or we can just actually ignore it, maybe pretend you're not hearing it or seeing it or feeling it. There's a great book by Dean Radin called Entangled Minds. And in it, he talks a lot about, he interviewed a lot of psychics around the 9/11 disaster, and how a lot of psychics didn't pick up that in the field. And it's because it was something that was out there in the field. It was being planned. It's in consciousness, because whenever we do anything, especially if it's a big scale event like that, it's there and you can see it if you're tuned into it. But something so big and something so unthinkable can get past us because we feel it and we can go into hiding and totally miss the signs. It doesn't mean you're a bad psychic. It means that whatever you felt, your body responded to it first. And so when we're talking about creative flow and feeling something coming, it's really important to feel whatever you're feeling, and also feeling what your body's saying about it, but don't give it the story. When I'm going to give an example of this. A few years ago, it was probably like four years ago, my husband and I were sitting in our hot tub. It was at night and we were just kind of chilling. And he started feeling something. He's like, oh, something big's coming. Something big is coming. I can feel it. Something big is coming. So I kind of tapped in and I was like, yeah, I can feel that. And then he's like, he kind of went into like, oh, but it could be bad. Right. And he went into like all of the, protection stuff, it could be bad. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if that happens? And I was kind of like, that's interesting, because from what I'm feeling right now, I don't know what it is. I feel a surge of energy and I'm experiencing it as a lot of energy, but I don't know what that means. And I believe actually when you feel that surge of energy as a visionary and a creator, it's an opportunity, first of all, to work through whatever traumas that block you from using that energy in a creative way.
Yeah.
And it's a great, I think everything's an opportunity and everything reveals.
Absolutely. And I think this is the thing, because you're right. Our system is made to be fearful, and then our society has just fed into that. So our first go-to in our body is fear. Right? I often talk about the brain that, it's like, yeah, we just need to shush that and listen to intuition, right? And I do think, because we're so programmed that way, that whenever we feel something, we automatically go into the negative. So then it becomes scarier. So it's even harder to tap into it, right? And so being able to step back from that and just experience takes practice, takes a lot of practice to be able to sit with it, go, yeah, I don't know what this is. Like you and I are both talking about right now, we don't know where this is going. And we could, and maybe in moments we will be terrified and be like, what's going to happen? I'm not going to be able to feed myself, all the rest of that, we could go there. However, I'm feeling very expansive, as in, I feel that this is a good thing. I have no idea what's going to happen, where we're going, and it might be a little bumpy in the middle, but I think ultimately it's going to be good. That's my go-to when these things happen. But that's also my experience, right?
Yeah. Well, I think when you're, you see yourself as a creator, you also have, in addition to trauma memory, right? We also have past experiences where things worked out too. Right. And I know for myself, I've taken many, 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 many scary leaps in my life. And I've always been able to land on my feet. And so I know that about myself. It may not always look pretty. And it doesn't mean that I'm not doing this. Right. But that's the work that I get to do, is to trust spirit, trust spirit, and which is me on a bigger scale, is really I'm just opening up more avenues for me to connect in with my soul self. And every experience that I have can lead me to a greater connection to myself as my soul, versus being in my human ego, fearful, hiding, and afraid of living. It's a lot edgier when you're listening to soul, Yeah. There's been a lot of times where I'm like, you really want me to do that? And it doesn't work out, because there's no guarantee that when you take the journey that your soul's asking you to go on, that it's going to work out.
It might be a lesson you need to learn by going that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, the pot of gold is right there. It just means that you might have a lesson following the path. It's a long journey from start to finish. You're here for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, not everything is, just because you listen, is going to feel good. We have lessons to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe our expansion in consciousness is really about the expansion, getting beyond the ego story, that we all have. We all have it, every one of us. And there's a woman that I follow that she calls it it's not the pain personality, but it's some kind of personality, because she jokes about it, how like our egos don't like to talk about, when we talk about them, as being egoic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's our fake persona. It's not really who we are here to be. We're here to be magnificent. We're here to live our best lives. And if, I've had stuff happen to me, and I know, Larissa, you've had stuff happen to you, it doesn't make that go away. But what goes away, and where the healing is taking your energy out of keeping that story alive and putting your energy towards your life force, your creative life force energy. And that part of that, I'm going to kind of loop us back to like, there's a rhythm to that. We each have our own rhythm of creation.
Yeah. And knowing your own rhythm, see, that's part of the problem, is we're always trying to follow someone else's rhythm, right?
Yes.
And so we have to figure out our own rhythm and then be able to follow that rhythm. And it's going to, there's ebbs and flows. The longer you're in it, let me tell you, the more you start to see it. And you're like, okay, yeah, been here, done this, not this exact thing, but been in this energy before. And then it's like, okay, so I know it's going to work out, because it always does. Yes, it can be really painful right now, but and now I'm trying to, instead of, putting a lot of expectation on the good, the bad, whatever, it's just like, I don't know what's happening. I know I'm in transition. I know something's happening. I'm just going to let it go and let it happen. Yep. Because the more I try to figure it out or direct it, the longer it's going to take, the worse it's going to be. So just, and I don't always get it right. Trust me, I do not always get this right. This is where I'm sitting from right now, having gone through a wake-up call recently. So yes, yeah, it's how we move through the world, learning from our own selves. Because yes, we are a collective energy, but we are one and the whole.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that play into it, and I just want to pop in real quick here and say, like, there's 14 people there. So let us know how this is landing. What's opening up for you as you're listening? Share you just share anything,
Just let us know you're actually there.
Yeah.
Say hi.
As I said that, somebody popped off. Number 14 popped off.
Don't put so much pressure on them, Deb.
I know. I just want to talk to you guys. I want to hear what you're thinking. We could totally have this conversation without anybody doing it really fine. Yeah. And we do. But I love hearing what other people are thinking and what what your experiences are. So what I was going to say anyway about kind of looping us back into, finding your own rhythm that's innately yours, and it really does requires time and practice, and getting it wrong is part of that practice, right? And so we can't be afraid, or you can, but just like allow yourself to feel your fear and keep going. I think it's really interesting too, like when you choose to be in a position like this, where you're allowing yourself to be seen and allowing yourself to speak your version of the truth, how you see the world is your truth, and you're expressing your uniqueness in the world and allowing others to partake of that. First of all, we have to move through being called wrong and being called right, and what people think about that. And it's not, because sometimes people can be really mean and say really nasty things, and it's learning to be okay with, well, that's their opinion, or maybe it just didn't land for them, and what I have to say isn't for them. But it doesn't mean that what you have to say is wrong. And it doesn't actually make it right either. It just makes it yours. And to be able to sit and follow the truth of who you are, the truth of who you are, and finding out the truth of who you are and allowing that to express to you, that part of that, there's a rhythm to it, and you're finding the rhythm. And so, yeah, you're going to get yourself into positions where you're pushing too hard. And guess what you get to see about that? Oh, look at me doing a pattern of pushing too hard, right? It doesn't mean that you stop it entirely and you become perfect. It's not about that. It's about messing up.
Well, and I think that's a really important point, because I think a lot of people think you do the work and you're cured. No, we're here for a life journey. What I find is that the more I've done the work, the faster I recover. The faster I recover from when I don't pay attention, from when I don't listen. And so I have ways to course correct much quicker. Yes.
I love
the
that.
Autism when my brain is like stuck.
I don't like the word correct.
My brain just gets stuck there, and it usually happens when I'm tired. So, but yes, we absolutely have the same experiences. We have our patterns, and yes, some of them I have broken. Most of them I've just extended the length, and it's not as harmful, and then I recover quicker. I find. Yeah.
And then there's the whole thing of like, if you could get neutral with your experience, where we kind of tend to, when we have experiences that we don't like, or we have really strong feelings about, we call it wrong, and then we're bad, and then we go into our shame, and like, I'm lower than a stone, kind of, dirt is higher than me, whatever. But if we could be neutral with that and just bless the experience, because we don't, unless you're really, really, really connected with your soul, or your soul, or get a past life reading, or have a regression, or, some other kind of modality where you're finding out, like, really, what did your soul come here to do? You might be right on freaking track. You may not like it, but you might be right on track,
Yeah. And I think that's another really good point too, because it's true. When we go through hard things, or things that we find uncomfortable, that's probably a better thing. When we find them uncomfortable, we go to that negative, it was bad. But ultimately, it's all lessons, right? And I know we talk about this a lot in business. I do anyways, in failing forward, right? The more you fail, the more you move forward. The more you fail, that's the more attempts you've made. And they say that a lot of successful people have failed more than other people have ever tried. And I think that's very true of life, right? When you're out there living life, you're going to fall on your face sometimes. And that's part of the lessons that are being learned. And if we look at it as part of the journey, as opposed to, oh, I messed up, it really shifts things. It really shifts things.
Yeah. And I think too, if we could learn to feel our feelings that our body is having around, even if the story is like, if I go into my own situation, I mean, I could totally be telling myself the story like, oh, it didn't work out and I failed, and I never fail at anything. And like, this is the first big failure I've had. And I'm going to have all these feelings about it. As long as I get out of the story of it, and I just feel like, where is it in my body? And what is it? What is the feel? And can I just give myself a hug around that and just be in the feel of that without making it feel right, or trying to get out of it, making it wrong, or making myself wrong, and further compounding the problem, because that actually stops us from moving forward, because we're indulging in a story that is probably not true anyway.
What is truth? I talk about this a lot too, right? Because everything is perception. So what is truth? It's our truth. because we perceived it that way. We believe that about it. But what really is truth?
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know some answers, like people's thoughts on what is truth, because I do think we use that word a lot in our world, right? The facts and the truth. And really, what is that? Because every single person can witness one thing and they'll all see it, perceive it completely different.
Yeah.
Right. And they know this scientifically, even like the court system, and how many people witness something and it was this person, that person, and our own biases and our own life experiences feed into how we create that scenario again. So to retell it, and everything in our life is a story, because it's already happened and it's your perception of it. So everything is a story. So what stories are you telling yourself? And you can shift those stories. You absolutely are in charge of that. You get to decide what you believe, what you think. And so shifting how you perceive things, again, takes work, right? Because we're not taught to do this. We're not taught to listen in. We're not taught to even just decide, yeah, I don't want to believe that anymore. Right? This is my news story. And go from there. But we absolutely can do that. Yeah. And I think we're taught so much about, well, we love the pain. We love the fear. We're just so immersed in it. We're so immersed in it. And part of it is the biology, our brain, or the physiology, all of those things that help keep us there. But then it also, fear is a great way to control. Fear is a great way to make money. Fear is there's so many things that are tied to fear that of course we want to stay there. We don't. We say we don't, but there's so many benefits to staying there that you have to go against the norms.
Well, there's that whole what if factor.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
What if what that doctor is telling me about my diagnosis is true, and I want to pursue, a holistic approach where I'm going into, mind, body, and the energetics of whatever that condition is called. That takes a huge amount of courage to make that kind of shift. And you have to go against all of your belief systems, because a lot of them are implanted subconsciously. And subconscious means you don't know that they're there. And those are the things that are autopilot. We act out of it on autopilot. And those you just can't say, well, I don't believe that. It's because the minute you say that, your body's going to take you through the fact that you did believe that. So when we're talking about belief systems, it's not on the conscious level at all. It's that autopilot. It's that thing like, what did I just do right now? And I'm sure a lot of us have had the experience of driving and checking out, and how did I even get here? It's like the program got me here safely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you think about the soul being lifetime after lifetime, and the different experiences that are held, you're not always conscious of your belief systems or your thoughts processes because of that as well, right? There's so many things. And then the subtleties of your environment that you were raised in, the ancestral traumas that have come through, either through you and your body, or how your family has moved through the world. And all of those things you are most likely not conscious of. And so really checking in with yourself, right? This is what I love about journaling, is that you can do this. You can really ask the questions. What do I believe? Where do I feel that feeling in my body? What is that feeling? All of those different things, that self-awareness, as we grow, we can tune in more to what is actually being fed to us that has nothing to do with who we are and what we want, what we're working towards. And I think it's just such an important part, that self-awareness and really checking in with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, on the larger scale too, it's that we're remembering ourselves right now too. We're remembering who we are, and more of that memory is becoming available the more of us that wake up. We're creating more space in the field.
Mm.
So I always think of everything as a web, and a lot of that comes from the work I did as a myofascial release therapist. It was learning. I had to learn how to think about the body as an organism, not as a machine or a collection of parts that work like a machine, that are all separate. That, like, it's really interesting too, because when you're learning anatomy and physiology, everything is learned as a separate entity. What we have to do as practitioners is remember to reintegrate it, that it all works together, that it's all one, and it's interwoven together as a web that ultimately weaves out from matter into energy. So if you start picturing your energetic system as a three-dimensional web that is unique to you, it's uniquely designed to move in accordance with your mind, your experiences, and you can get locked into those movements. That's our subconscious mind that locks in the patterns into how our body moves. So it's really super important to get out of the level of the mind and storytelling and believing what your brain is telling you, and get into the body, and even not believe what your body is telling you. It's being in neutral as soul with your body in a loving and a compassionate way. And it's usually where you're tuned out.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we have a trauma, there's a disconnection that happens between the thalamus and the hypothalamus in the brain. So there's a lack of connection happening up in the brain, which also feeds the enteric nervous system. And the enteric nervous system, the bulk of that is your second brain, is your gut. Mm-hmm. And so this is where solar plexus lies. And so most of us have a closed down solar plexus. Our chakras are meant to fluctuate, to open and close, to take in information. Most of us are tight there. We're closed down, so we're not getting the information from that, so we're always, and that also creates that feeling of being in the fight or flight. And there's more and more, I could go on because I get really nerdy about this, but there's a whole vagus nerve issue and how prevalent and predominant that is in our body, and how that plays a part as well in that chronic fight or flight scenario that happens as we're changing. Like, this is when it triggers, is when you're changing how you're doing something, when you're going from a mechanical, this is how you're told to do it, right? You get up, you go to work, you work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever, and then you come home, you have your meal, and then you go to sleep, and then you do it all over again. Who said that was like our innate rhythm? Right?
It's not. I don't think it's anybody's innate rhythm.
Right?
Industrial Revolution went, we need people to do certain things. We're going to train them that way so that we can, and no, that's not our rhythm. Yeah. And rhythms are different for everyone. And that's part of the problem, right? Is that if we could just sort of move to different places in the world so our rhythms matched with time zones, I think that would be really handy. So that our rhythm was at, this time or whatever it is for us. But yes, I think that's really important. Even our body will lie to us. However, we don't even pay attention to that yet, right? Like, we're so caught up in the brain, we don't pay attention to our body. So I think it's the first step. And then you can start to decipher whether your body's lying to you or not. But I think you need to start paying attention to what's happening in your body, because your body has a lot to tell you if you pay attention. Where you actually feel emotions, what's happening with even your health, all the different things move through your body.
Yeah. And I think, when you do take it to the body level and you feel the feelings that are there, that you can, if you can just tap into neutral, you don't have to ask it to tell a story. Actually, it's better if you just stay on the level of feel versus trying to get a story out of it. Why is this there? What happened to me? And I know I've been through that too. I've had places in my body that, are chronically, I would say chronically patterned, that I've worked on it and it's come back. It's worked on it and it's come back. And I'm finally getting to the point of like, oh, it's not about, it's like, I go in like I'm an investigator and I need to know like the why. And even though, despite my training and my mentor always saying, if you need to know, you'll know. Trust me, you'll know. Let go of that, because it does get in the way, right? And what does that need to know? Where does that emanate from? Up here needs to know. Why? So it can change the story. It's just going to give you another version of another story. And it's great that we tell stories. There's a gift in that. There's a gift in everything we do. And so when we can realign ourselves and get into a right relationship with our bodies and with ourselves as soul, we're so multifaceted and multidimensional, right? There's a lot to decipher, but it can be simple, right?
And that's part of the thing, is that we try so hard to decipher it all. We make it so complicated. And if we can just step back, it's actually very simple. Yeah. But we get lost in the complexity of simplicity. And so it's like, just breathe. Yeah. Just breathe. Yep. And stop trying to make everything something. Which is and coming back to flow with that, the idea of being in flow, right? And we talk about this a lot with meditation, with art, writing. Like when you lose yourself in it, we talk about that as being the flow. And really, I think we're so caught up in all the things that are happening in the world that we don't. That's when we allow ourselves. Is when we can stop for a moment and we distract the world with this something else. And creativity is great for that, right? But what if we could just allow flow to happen all the time? And that was a question I asked. And because it's open to us to be in flow all the time. And it's really difficult in our society, right? But if we were to give ourselves space, I don't want to like consciously, no, because that's not what it's about. It's like give ourselves the space to allow the flow to come without the stories, without the thinking things through, without directing every moment. Imagine what that would be like.
Yeah, that's a practice to keep it simple, right? And what are that expression, keep it simple, stupid, right? I always hate that. I like saying keep it simple, sweetheart. Like being a little, why call myself stupid, right? But yeah, I mean, there is a simplicity of having a practice where you bring all of your energy into your body and bring all of your awareness into your root and just root yourself in there and breathe, and then plug yourself in to where you're already plugged in. The thing is, it already is. And what makes it isn't is our awareness, is where our awareness is. We keep getting hooked by things outside of us and further hooked by the thoughts we have that it is out there, even though everything we need is in here. Everything you need is in here. The connection and the keys to the universe are right in here. There's no need to go looking for it because it's right here. And it's so cliche, But when you really truly discover it, there's no other way to say it. There is no other way to say it. That, like, that's the awakening of it. And then it's a deepening of that relationship of your inner world. And that you're, as the creator from the inner world, you create to the outer world. Things aren't happening to you. If anything, you could say things are happening for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For you,
There's, yeah.
through you,
Yeah.
but not to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's very much our language
Mm-hmm.
is, and then because that comes from our brain, right? The fear and the protection, it's happening to us. We must protect.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if we just allow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we get caught up, and then you're going to have people that'll be like, okay, so I should just allow that car to run into me. And no, that's not what I'm saying.
Well,
Unless it's supposed to, unless it's
yes,
supposed to.
exactly. I was just going to say, if that's what that means, like, take care of yourself. But yeah,
But chances are, like, if a car is about to run into you,
yeah.
and
If you were given the heads up to get out of the way, I'd listen.
yeah,
If you weren't, well, then I guess that's part of your journey.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's our brain is just going to be like, no, and that's why we're looking for the dangers all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're not in that flow, and we're like, no, we have to protect
Yeah.
from what?
Yeah.
This is the time we don't even know what.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was kind of to that end, I was in the grocery store this morning, and it was so funny because I was kind of just wanting to get in, wanting to get out. I had a few things that I had to grab, just want to get in, want to get out. And it was just so funny. I was like actually laughing about it because I'd no sooner like I'd get going, and then somebody would just jump in front of me and walk really slow. And so I realized, like, in that moment that it was happening a lot. So I actually started to laugh. I'm like, okay, like, this is where I need to be right here, right now. And it doesn't matter that there's a part of me that wants to hurry up and get it done because I want to get on to the next thing. I'm going to sit back and enjoy these slow people like I keep getting in my way, right? Because what if I were allowed to move through the world at the rate of speed that I wanted to? What's to say that I don't get into my car and get into an accident because I'm in that mode of going, and I'm missing something,
a message you were supposed to get.
Yeah, or meet someone that you're supposed to meet, so it's like, that's what I mean about, like, it's happening for you, because we're all creating, we're all in the soup together, right? And we're all creating, and we're going to bump into each other. But notice how you react, notice your reaction, and just notice it with gentle kindness and compassion, because we all do it. We all get grumbly. And if you can shift that, that's the practice. That's practical application out in the world practice, versus sitting high on a mountaintop all the way alone, out in nature. And anybody can do that. I challenge you to go out into the world.
Out in the world and do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I had a similar experience last week. We were driving home from my daughter's, we have Canadian Thanksgiving in October. And so we were driving home. It's a 2.5 hour drive. And it didn't matter what I did. I was tired and I just wanted to get home. It didn't matter. Like, somebody was going too slow, or there was construction, and I'm like, what is happening? At first I was like, super, like, I just want to get home. Like, why is this happening? And then eventually I just started to laugh, because I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, this is here for a reason. Could maybe a train so that I could just stop and sit? Could we do that instead of me having to like constantly think, oh, I can go. No, I can't. Oh, I can go. No, I can't. Which was really funny, because then there was a train, and I was like, and I was just like, all right. So you were listening. That's good. And I see the humor in this. I don't know what this is for, but I'm going to just, be all right with it.
The thing is, you'll never know. You'll never know what you may have missed, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You got home safely at the time you were supposed to get home, right? Yeah.
It's so funny, but yeah, just looking at it that way, and it does take practice. And of course, out in the world, I have a very short, I don't want to say fuse, but I get agitated very easily, for a number of reasons. And so when I'm out in the world and I can't just like move quickly, my go-to is to be exasperated and frustrated. But I'm getting much better at catching myself at that and go, okay, this is happening for a reason. Breathe. What's really happening here? Does it matter? Does it matter that I can't reach that peanut butter faster? Does it matter that I can't,
you know,
like
peanut butter now?
Exactly. Like I just, and
the
so
peanut
just
butter demon is taken over.
I can wait 30 more seconds for that peanut butter. It's okay. I'm not eating it today anyway. But yeah, it's just a different way of looking at things. And I really think that's what flow is about, right?
Yes,
it's just
absolutely.
learning to look at things differently.
Yeah, because flow is, right? Flow is, and what takes us out of it is our belief
Thoughts.
that, yeah. And it's, you know, and we're also too, we're practicing on aligning ourselves to what our desire is, you know, so every one of us has encoded within us a desire, and it's in our heart space. And you know, and it's not the thing. So desire also kind of connotes like a painfulness of something that I want that I don't have. But it's getting into the feel of that's the energy. It's just how it feels, right? You've been telling yourself the story that you don't have it, and that, you know, that desire is painful. And so your heart is going to say something about that, you know, and especially if you haven't been listening to your heart, especially if you feel that little like niggling in there and you don't like how it feels, and you're like, I'm going to go back up to the story because that's the one that's serving me right now. And because it is hard work to feel those things that don't feel good. It doesn't feel good to feel like whatever, you know, whatever's left unexpressed in your heart. But if you never go there and you never feel it, you're never going to know where that desire will lead you. And, you know, and that's where I say, like, hang on, it's going to be an interesting ride.
It's true. I think you're going to see that not just from you and I, but from other people right now. There's another energy shift that's happening. And I think that many people who are tuned in will be shifting and might be in the same place we are right now, not really sure what's happening, not really sure where we're going, but we know we're along for the ride. And so we're and we'll, you know, keep you as in tune as we can, as we know, we'll let you know. And I think we'll all be seeing that from different people, different places.
Yeah, start to notice the similarities. Like, you know, I have, you know, I follow Lee Harris, and I follow Dr. Sue Morter, and Kyle Cease. There's different people that I'll listen to their YouTube channels, and certain ones, you know, and there's a astrology hub that I always get their emails from, and I listen to them a lot too. And it's really interesting, especially when you start to bring the astrology into it and get into the feel of astrology versus like what someone's saying this is going to happen kind of thing. This triggered my memory of my friend Georgia when she was here in Sedona. She kind of brought into my world the idea of Vedic astrology. I'd never heard of it before her, and she had been studying it. And so we would sit at my altar, and, you know, we would do a daily ritual. She'd come over every day at 8:30, and we'd sit at the altar in the energy of, in the nakshatra wheel. So the Vedic astrologers kind of back up a little bit and talk about that for a second. There's in the Vedic astrology, the lore around that is the moon visits a wife. There's visits a wife every night. So every day you're in a different nakshatra, and each has its own flavor. It has its own story to it. And it's about a certain, you could just say, oh, it's, you know, Shravana today, and it means this, right? Or you could really sit in the energy and just allow yourself to feel it. And this is what we would do as a practice, because we were doing it together. We would talk about what was coming through. And then we do the reading of what Shravana meant and what the advice for Shravana was. And it was really interesting when we did it that way, because what we were training ourselves to do was to feel the energetics of what's going on in the cosmos versus taking someone else's perspective, if you will, of this is how it's going to be, because it's an influence. It's going to influence how you create in the world.
Mhm.
And that's part of trusting your own rhythm, is you have to find first your rhythm and what is that, right? Outside of the truth of the story of who you think you are, and dropping into the actual magnificence of who you are and how, and that is the practice for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And I think often, I have a number of labels and I think about labels because it becomes who we are, right? We use that to explain things.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we move through this world. But more recently, I've been really thinking about this in the energy that we came to this lifetime with, and how the world is explaining us.
Mm-hmm.
But we turn it around and use it to explain ourselves to them. But
Mm-hmm.
really, they're trying to understand this different energy. And it's a real shift in, not in the negative positive, no, that's not right, in the power behind it, as in there's not something wrong with me, right? As we are labeled in this society, something wrong with you if you don't fit the norm, if you don't fit in, if you have these labels.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting that power from something wrong with you to, you need a way to explain how amazing, how energetic I am. And so you've labeled me to explain the difference because I'm not conforming to your expectation. It's a real energy shift to think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really been sitting with that because of the number of labels I have. So I'm just like, I'm not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Our expectations in this society are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so allowing that energy has opened up so many, I'm sure, new labels for other people to use.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, don't you think too that that is one of the reasons that we don't expand to our fullest potential? Because what if someone calls me crazy? What if they lock me up? And that happens.
It happens.
It
Yeah,
happens because
that's
you
a real
haven't
fear we can have, especially as women.
altered reality,
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't fit the norm for any number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's a very real thing that can happen.
Yep.
And that I am, it absolutely does hold you back from your full potential.
Yeah. And
Your
I think,
full
yeah.
truth.
And I think, what's kind of coming through right now too, is when we define full potential, it's the one that the energy of this now can handle, because anything too extreme in one direction or the other,
Mm-hmm.
consciousness gets rid of it.
Yeah.
Consciousness will get rid of it on one,
Mm-hmm.
one, if it's too elevated, it can't handle, or we can't perceive it,
Mm-hmm.
And I often think about, like, when I'm, at my altar and I'm, doing my ceremony and ritual, and the stuff that I'm feeling and the stuff that comes through my imagination, the stuff I'm seeing with my inner vision,
Mm-hmm.
that this is exactly why I'm an artist, because I need to somehow express what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's not, for me, it's not about, it's in the beginning, yes, it was like, what are people going to say about this? And I need to explain where these images are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's really getting, the more you do this, the more you get beyond. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's your experience of the world that's the validity to it. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
it true. It makes it true. And so, kind of back to your question about what is truth, it makes it true because you're experiencing it as a truth, and you are one of many
Mm-hmm.
souls expressing their unique viewpoint, and expressing their unique energy in the world. And to me, that's something to celebrate, not something to homogenize and make wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're finding pockets of, that we can do that in, and it's expanding, right? It's expanding. But if you think about the uniqueness of each individual, how amazing that is, because we are all one, but we are all individual.
Yeah.
And to have the amount of uniqueness, like the vast amount of uniqueness, and yet we're all the same. I just like, I get caught in the awe of that, right?
Yeah.
Like just like
the similar pattern that repeats, and then,
yeah.
As you were speaking, I was just thinking about all of the varieties out in nature, the varieties of life, the expression of life, the trees, the grasses, the flowers, the animals, all the different kingdoms, of nature, and how beautiful of an expression that is. Like, you can totally, it's totally awe-inspiring when you just go out on the land and connect in with Pachamama, the great, the great artist of this world, and see the variety of, even if you're just going to look at trees or mushrooms or anything, and it all comes from the same energy. It all comes from life,
Yeah. And just, because people can, I don't know, reason. What is it that sets us apart? Stupidity? Reason? I don't know. we apply stories to everything.
Free will.
Free will. Okay, let's do that one.
Yeah.
Free will.
Yeah.
We apply stories to everything. And yet, if you look in nature, no need for a story. It just is. It just is. And so, can we be more like that? Can we work towards that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of so many great ways we can start playing with that. Like when you're out in nature and you're seeing something, what story are you telling about what you're seeing? How are you narrating your experience? Like, just start to be aware, and pay attention to what the narrative is in your mind all the time. I think about, it's funny because when I meet people on the trail when I'm hiking, if they have a dog with them, there's always a story about that dog. It's usually the humans telling you about them, like, oh, they don't like men, or they do this, or they, and it's like, yeah, the behavior might be true, but the why is all story, because let's face it, we don't know why. They could be picking up on you and just acting out in that way too. But it's like, really just start to notice other people's stories, how they're telling the story, and just appreciate that they're telling you a story without thinking that what they're saying is right or wrong or true or a lie.
That's their story.
Yeah, that's their story. Their story reveals who they are, right? We, like, even this, right? We're revealing who we are by how we're talking, what we're speaking about. Yeah.
Interesting. Just popped into my mind. I watched a movie, I don't know, yesterday or sometime recently. And it was a son who had not been in contact with his father his whole life. And his father reached out to him when he was an adult. And it was like the first time, but it was just a really bizarre experience. He needed help moving. And so he reached out to him to help him move. And it's like, and the stories, and this is why it came to mind, because at first the son was really angry, right? Like, because then the father went off and did his own thing. And then, so the stories he was telling and were really filled with anger. And he was the person that his dad didn't love, and he didn't, all of those stories that as abandoned children we tell ourselves. And so, but as the story went on and he got to know his father in a bizarre way, because his father ended up in the homeless shelter that he was working at, he was able to move through that and allow him to be who he was without all those stories. And they were both writers, and so I think that also helped. But it was just an interesting way that it was expressed, because we often don't let people be who they are,
Right.
because we have a story about it.
Yeah.
And so when you can remove that story, because really it's your story, who knows what's really happening?
Yep.
It can really make a difference.
Yep.
It can really make a difference.
Yeah.
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 Well, it looks like we are right on time today.
Oh
Any
my
final
goodness.
thoughts?
Here's a final thought, like, oh my gosh, that went really fast.
Yes, as it usually does. As it usually does.
I have about 500 more things I could say.
Which we probably will say right after we go there. That happens a lot. I said, Deb, I've mentioned this to you. I'm going to just mention to the public. We've talked about opening a Patreon, because we often talk before and after, and maybe we should share that. And it's just, we have to deal with it. That's why we haven't. It's like one more level of things that needs to be done. So, but yeah, if that sounds interesting, let us know, because we might do that at some point when we get organized.
Yeah, make it a whole party kind of thing. Yeah, where there's a little bit more, like another, what is it? Less distance. Here, there's a lot of distance between us and you guys listening. And so if you don't put anything in the chat, it creates more of a distance. Wink, wink, nod, nod, hint, hint.
Although we have a wonderful conversation all by ourselves, we do it quite regularly, but we do love having you here watching, be a part of our conversation. So maybe next time. But what have you got going on? You said everything's kind of on hold right now. You're not.
Yeah, what I'm working on actually is I've been being guided to write the story of the Cosmic Dreaming Lodge guides and finish those paintings. And so I'm taking this time to do that, but I'm also doing it in a way that it can be participatory. So I'm opening up a Substack, and I'm going to be like announcing it to my email list. So I guess this is like the first announcement that, I'm going to be writing on Substack and unfolding the story, which is going to contain some ritual practices. And so there's going to be stuff to do and stuff to grow, because I can't not take people along on a journey with me. And so while I'm not going to be teaching any classes for anytime soon, which I don't know when that will shift at all.
Be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, who knows?
Yeah, it could be like next week. I'll be like, you know what? Everything's back on. But so that's kind of what I'm working on right now, is just, and it's what I'm amazed at is when I made that decision and I put that out there, it was like opening up a floodgate of what needed to come down. And you had said this to me too. It's like, it's all right there. That when you're ready, it's just going to come through. And that's exactly what's happening, is that, and it was just me getting out of the way of how I thought it needed to go, that I'm honoring, this gestation period that I'm in right now. And, it's okay to, show like, hey, I'm gestating and here's what I'm gestating on. And you guys can kind of come along for the ride if you want.
Yeah.
And how about you?
Yeah, for me, Awakening is open right now. This we're in a shift. So this season is going to be very similar to past seasons, but I'm not sure what that's going to look like going forward. Power of Prayer Flags is also a program we have open right now. We start next week, and that is sitting in prayer. And that looks different for everyone. We meditate, we journal, we create. The prayer flags themselves are made after our sessions together.
Beautiful.
But that session together is, I call it sitting in prayer. And we do that to bring forth those energies that we want to bring forward, but then also what do we want to put out in the world, right? And so that. And then our Healing with Love Summit has been pushed back numerous times, but it will be out the first week of November. So we are just getting everything ready so that we can get that out and promoting. And I'm excited about that because you are a guest. Your husband is a guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Separately, not together, but
yes.
Two
different people, two different topics.
Yep.
And there we're going to
So
talk
cool.
about labels. We're going to talk about how we move in the world with our labels. We're going to talk about why can't we just be nice to each other?
Yeah. Come from love, come from your heart. Yeah. Get beyond your wounding.
Lots of that. So I'm excited about that. But yes, definitely check out both of us. Keep tabs on us because things are shifting.
Things are shifting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks for popping in here with us. It was awesome. We'll be back again in a month.
Yeah. Next month.
Mid-November for another Connection with Spirit, where who knows what we will be discussing. We knew the last 2 months, we knew exactly what. Now we're back in this, we'll see what wants to pop up.
Yeah, often we don't know until the day of, but sometimes like you said, these last two, we've known way in advance. And because it's just the energy we've been sitting in. So it's, we'll see what happens. You'll find out when we find out.
But until then, be well.
Bye.